Returning now to the news that 5 Americans released from prison in Iran have arrived in Qatar as part of a prisoner swap deal mediated by Doha. There were emotional scenes on the tarmac as US officials received them. Earlier, 2 of the 5 Iranians freed from jail in the United States also arrived in the Gulf state. As part of the deal, $6 billion of Iranian oil money has been unfrozen after being blocked in South Korea when sanctions were imposed. Well, let's talk now to Mohammad Morandi, who is an academic and political analyst based in Tehran. Good to speak to you, Mohammad. So we've seen both Iranian and US prisoners released as part of this deal. Is this a win for both sides?
Obviously, it's a good thing when tensions decrease. I think it's a bigger win for Iran, though, because the Americans were forced to concede quite a bit. Not only were Iranian prisoners released, but the Americans also had to give up assets that it had illegally frozen. All of Iranian assets, whether in South Korea or in Iraq and elsewhere, are now unfrozen, and that is near $20 billion in all that have been put at the disposal of the Iranians. This, of course, is Iranian money and should have never been frozen in the first place, but that is another debate.
Well, frozen because of sanctions, of course. Let's talk about that money. It has been unfrozen, but there is a financial arrangement in place for how it can be spent, isn't there? How will that work?
Well, that was a part of the negotiations. The Iranian assets have been returned to Iranian banks, and the Iranian central bank will have full authority over them. The president has said that the money will be spent to develop the Iranian economy. And the Americans, therefore, have no control. Of course, the Iranians are not going to be using this money to purchase equipment for its military, but it will be using the money to develop the country.
So the US has its prisoners back, as does Iran, but the release of the money has caused some controversy in the US, hasn't it?
Yes, of course. That's because the United States sees itself as an exceptional country that has exceptional rights, and that its sanctions basically, they see themselves and their sanctions as the will of the international community. And of course, Iran doesn't accept that. And that is why the Iranians negotiated from a their negotiating team was very tough. And they basically forced Americans to accept that all of Iranian assets have to be freed and that the prisoner swap must be proportionate.
So what does this all mean for the state of US-Iran relations? Do you think we'll see further deals or potentially sanctions relief?
Well, the Iranians have had a lot of success over the last couple of years. Iranian relations with Turkmenistan, with Tajikistan and Central Asia have improved dramatically. Iran's relations with countries in the Persian Gulf, especially Saudi Arabia, have improved significantly. And Iran has joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as well as BRICS. And therefore, this agreement, I think, alongside those, shows that the Iranians, their position is quite strong. The Americans, on the other hand, they are in a difficult spot because of the conflicts that they have abroad and also the difficulties at home. Is this the first step that the Americans are willing to take to then build upon and take further steps? We'll have to wait and see. But it could potentially be a good sign.